How's it going, guys, and welcome to today's video. In this video I'm going to be removing and installing a thermostat and a thermostat housing on a Ford Fiesta. I'm also going to be removing the alternator to gain access to that thermostat. So if you want to do any of those items on your Ford Fiesta, be sure to stay tuned to this video. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do on this job, which I'm going to skip in this video, is removal of the drive belt. The drive belt in these is a stretch belt. There's loads of videos out there how to remove and install stretch belts, so if you want to go and check that out before you start this job, and then you will have all the rest of the information in this one. The alternator is going to have to come out of the way, so to do that there is 3 bolts on the alternator. We're also going to have an electrical connector and a cable. We need to bear in mind that we don't want any power going to the alternator when we're doing these. That can cause any potential issues, so we disconnect the battery so we can work safely on the vehicle. If you are reusing the coolant, it is a good time before you get into the hose area that you drain off the coolant system and catch it if you're reusing it, or dispose of it if you are filling up with new coolant. In this case, the customer is putting in new coolant, so it wasn't an issue and I wasn't concerned with the coolant. Alright, so at the alternator we have an electrical plug, we have the cable, and we have 3 items that we have to remove. We have a 15mm nut and 2 15mm bolts. The 2 at the top here have to be removed, and then there is 1 down at the side that needs to be removed. The cable connection is a 13mm that needs to be removed, and we're going to remove all of those components. Once we have that done, we get a E-torque, we get an E8, and I'm using a 1/4 long ratchet here, and I'm going to back away that. Once I have that removed, I'm able to rotate the alternator to the left. That gives me a lot easier access for the electrical connector. I use my pick to remove that, and then we have clear visibility to the thermostat housing. As you can see, it's leaking quite a bit here, and the customer had been topping it up for a while, so it was well timed to change this housing. There is 4 bolts holding on the housing. We also have to remove 2 hose clamps. With the hose clamps, you can use a lot of different things. You can use pliers, you can use water pump pliers, you can use the hose clamp removal tools, any of those that compress the clamp enough where you can move them back. I'm using my hose removal tool here to help break the seal. If you don't have one of these, I recommend holding down tight and twisting the hose back and over to help break the seal and pull it back. With that done, we can back away the rest of the bolts and remove the thermostat housing. As you can see, there's a lot of build up here on the engine side. We need to make sure that we clean this off completely. This is the most important step out of the job. If we do this wrong, we're going to have a bad seal and it's going to leak afterwards. So take your time, clean it off completely and make sure it's done right. I use a flat screwdriver, I use a pick, I use a sandpaper and a scraper at this particular interval. So I'm using a flat screwdriver, getting in there around the thermostat area, making sure that sits correctly. I use a scraper and I also use a pick. I go over it multiple times to make sure it's clean, and then lastly I just use sandpaper to clean it off. Once you have that done, you know you're going to have a nice level surface to the thermostat housing, and it's going to mate correctly where you're not going to have to use any additional sealers to help seal that item. I compare it to the new part. I also make sure the thermostat is right, and then I refit. We put in the thermostat first, then we put on the thermostat housing. I hand tighten up those 4 bolts that were removed, and then I fit the hoses on. Now at this stage, if you're reusing the old hoses, you can see the hose lines, which means the clamp will sit in the exact position again. Another mistake that can be made is if you put the hose clamps too far forward or too far back. When they're under a lot of pressure, as the temperature increases, you can have a leak from those hoses. So just make sure that the hose clamps are in the correct position when refitting. I then fit back the alternator, I put on the drive belt and then top up the coolant system. I then run the system, get it up to operating temperature. I make sure that there's heat coming into the cabin, and then when I'm happy with the level that is it, I bring it for a road test. After the road test, I recheck the level, make sure that everything is all good and the job is complete. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please like, share, comment and subscribe. And I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.